I don't know what happened.
It's not on mute, is it?
No, I unmuted it.
You need to mute yourself.
All right, there we go. Okay, that's fine. All right. Shana Tova. Good evening, everyone. Gamar Chatima Tova. I'll invite you to take your seats so we can begin. Gamar Chatima Tova. Welcome. We're going to enter into this evening, as is our tradition at Or Chadash, with music, with Jeff Cooper on piano and Aaron Stambler on cello, bringing us in with the melody of Kol Nidre.
Thank you. That was so beautiful. Such a beautiful way to start. Good Yontif. Kol Nidre is hard for me to wrap my head around. In just a moment, we will say not once, not twice, but 3 times, almost like an incantation. Our vows will not be vows. Our promises will not be promises. This is not talking about last year's vows, asking to be released from the promises we weren't able to keep. That would make sense to me on this day. This is looking ahead, seeming to preempt our efforts to do better and be better with this blanket, just don't listen to anything I say. But Judaism has taught me exactly the opposite of that, to take the weight of my word pretty seriously, to wield commitments ever so carefully. Of course we'll make mistakes, but to start the year with a blanket fine print release in the midst of all our earnest and heavy efforts, it's hard for me to understand. Except there is one area of my life where I know this has been true. Over and over again, I have made a vow that I cannot keep as a parent. I feel my responsibility to my children like an oath. I take their safety upon myself like a vow. I remember the first moment that it hit me, not intellectually, but really hit me, that no matter what I do, no matter what I give over of my life or my time or my love or my money or my spirit, no matter if I'm willing to give my own life, I cannot ensure their comfort or their happiness or their health or their lives. I cannot keep them alive. It is not within my power. The truth of that is like a black hole. I cannot keep them alive in the face of illness, of body or of mind, in the face of mass shootings, in the face of the most random accidents, blips on the time-space continuum. I can't promise even this one thing. Nidra na la nidre, my vow is not a vow, no matter how much I wish it were. A few weeks ago, I started asking people, all kinds of people who might think about such things, what is going on with the melody of Kol Nidre? If I actually try to trace the emotions that I hear in it to mirror them in my body when I sing it, it makes me feel like a crazy person. It's haunting, and I feel defeat in it, but there's so much intensity and there's exhaustion, or maybe it's relief. Sometimes when the melody rises, I hear optimism or even hope. Or is that rising pitch more like panic? One last counter argument that maybe just in this one area my vow can stand. Maybe you know exactly what to do with your spirit, with your intention during this recitation. But if you don't, let me suggest this. Just let the melody hold you. Lean into every crazy corner of it and trust that it will hold you. Pour out the feelings that you have about the vows you cannot keep, your anger and your relief. Infuse the prayer with every nuance and contour that our children will need when they recite it in the years to come, just as our ancestors have done for us. Nidre na, la nidre. Our vows are not vows. So as we prepare now to release them into the realm of prayer instead, may they be granted. May we not lose our fervor in tipping every balance toward good, even if we can't guarantee the ends. May we hold each other in this room and across the generations through this strange but strangely true incantation. May it be a year for good.
We invite forward Sherry Frank to open the ark, and our first set of Torah holders, Heather and Adam Blank, Melinda and Steve Wertheim, and Renee and Cyril Vidalewski. We invite all who are able to rise. We turn to page 204. Or zarura latzadi, Ur Yisrael simcha. Or zarura latzadi, Ur Yisrael simcha. Bishiva shamalam, uvishiva shalmata, al dat hamakom, ve'al dat hakahal, anu matirin, להתפלל עם עבריינים, בישיבה שמעלה ובישיבה של מטה, על דעת המקום ועל דעת הקהל, אנו מתירים להתפלל עם עבריינים, בישיבה של מעלה ובישיבה של מטה, על דעת המקום ועל דעת הקהל, אנו מתירים להתפלל עם עבריינים. Kol V'charame v'kuname v'chinuyei v'kinusei ushevu din darna udehishtabana udei acharimna Vidyasarna al nafshatana Miyom Kippurim zeh ad Yom Kippurim Haba aleinu litova Kulon Icharatna v'ho Kulon Yehon Sharan Sheviti B'teilin u'vutalin La shririn v'la kayamin Nidrana la nidre V'yasarana la esare Ushvuatana lashevu We invite up to hold the Sifrei Torah Beth Tiemann Feldstein and Jeffrey Feldstein, Leslie and Fred Wachter, and Alan and Pamela Buchalter.
Kol Nidre Vesare V'charame V'kuname V'chinuye V'kinuse Dinarna Udehishtabana Udehacharimna Hi, 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 Miyom Kippurim Ad Yom Kippurim Haleinu Letova. Kuhon Icharat Navon Kuhon Yom Sharan Shvikin Shvitin Betelin Umvutalin La Shririn Vela Kayamin Nidrana La Nidre Yesarana La Yesare Hi, oh, Ushvuatana Lashavu.
We invite forward Sheila and Michael Damat, Gail and Bruce Dunner, Ben and Raina Nadler. Kol Nidre Vesare Vaharame Vekuname Vechinuye Vechinuse Ushevu Din Darna Udehi Shabana Udei Acharimna Vidya Sarna Al Nafshatana Miyom Kippurim Zeh Ad Yom Kippurim Haleinu Letova Kulhon Icharatna V'hon Kulhon Yehon Sharan Shviti B'Teilin U'Talin La Shririn V'la Kayamin Nidre na la nidre, visarana la sare. V'nislach l'chol adat b'nei Yisrael, v'lager hagar b'tocham, ki l'chol am bishkaga. Slach la levonam hazeh kekorel chastecha, v'chasher nasata leon hazeh mimitzrayim v'yaheina, v'sham nemar, vayomer Adonai, salachti kivarecha, vayomer Adonai, salachti kivarecha, vayomer Adonai, salachti kivarecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. Please be seated. I'm honored to invite forward the president of our congregation, Heather Blank, to share some reflections this Kol Nidre.
Good evening, and I'm going to start with a question. Why are you here? Think about it for a minute. It's Kol Nidre, it's the holiest night of the year, so why are you here, in this room, or logging in? On the second day of Rosh Hashanah, Mark Gary spoke about Abraham's obligation to God during the Akedah. And I'm getting feedback, and because I usually run that, I know. Mark questioned our seeming obligation to come to shul. Why do we feel the need to be here? Many people claim they feel the presence of God in nature, So what brings us together in this place? What do we get from this communal act of praying together? Can we be Jewish without this obligation? Where does this personal sense of obligation come from? Why does it seem like some Jews feel it and others don't? And maybe, most importantly, why do you choose to be here at Or Hadash? Personally, my obligation to Or Hadash is not rooted in some long history, and not because the shul is only 19 years old. It probably feels longer to me than many of you, since it's really the only synagogue I've ever belonged to. Growing up, my family attended the Orthodox synagogue congregation Beth Jacob on the high holidays and Passover. We never went on a Friday night. We only went on Saturday mornings in the months leading up to my brother's bar mitzvah. There were not nearly as many choices in synagogues when my parents got married 50-something years ago, but I don't think they ever wondered if another congregation could offer more to their family, or if somewhere else could have drawn us in and made us want to attend more than 4 days a year. It was very much of, this is where we go because where it's always been, and your grandparents belong here, and that's that. My husband Adam and I are unique in that we are both native Atlantans. He was bar mitzvahed at Temple Emmanuel. We got married at the AA. We chose Or Hadash on our own because it felt like the perfect mix of traditions that we could both embrace. Unlike my children here at Or Hadash, I didn't have any friends at Beth Jacob. At least not until I was 12 and I started studying to become an Eshes Chayil, a woman of valor. A nice, frum lady taught 5 of us girls how to be good Jewish wives. Don't ask Adam how I'm doing. I don't remember much from those lessons, but I do remember learning that my husband's circle of influence was in the community and mine is in the home, raising Jewish children. The other girls in that class all went to Torah Day School or Hebrew Academy, so I didn't really have much in common with them, but they did show me where all the other kids hung out during the high holidays. I'd always wondered why there weren't any other kids in the sanctuary. They either stayed home or they were hanging out downstairs in the halls. This is why I have never minded when my kids wanted to hang out in the social hall or in the courtyard with their friends. I think back to my days of sitting in shul, bored and lonely, and I love that my kids don't mind coming here because they have friends. I also have friends, which keep me coming back as well. Adam and I have been raising our boys here at Or Hadash since the beginning. They both attended Machon Hadash, Jews and Taboos, and were bar mitzvahed here. Or Hadash has been the most important part of raising my Jewish children, so I guess that makes it part of my circle of influence. Why am I here at the Bima on Kol Nidre as president? What is my obligation? Maybe I'm here because I've always been the person who felt the need to step up. I always answered questions when teachers asked in school because I felt bad when no one else did. I'm on the marching band booster board because I watched last year's president run around doing everything, and I wanted the band to be a success for my kids. By the way, I'm in charge of fundraising, so if you'd like to support the Centennial Band, talk to my kids tomorrow night after breakfast. I ended up on the board here because I was on the nominating committee, and we needed a few more board members. Don't get me wrong, I do know how to say no. You can ask my kids. But when something is important to me or to my family, I make the time and I step up. If you've been paying attention, you will notice that I have used the phrases circle of influence, fundraising, and step up in this speech so far. If you haven't picked up on that pattern, let me be more direct. As president, my circle of influence is this entire congregation. My job tonight is to ask you to support our shul. Your job as a community is to step up. Every year, the president stands here and reminds you that dues do not cover our entire operating budget, and the Kol Nidre appeal is an important part of meeting our annual expenses. I know it's a financially challenging year for many of you, and it's no different for Or Hadash. We are in the transition of bringing in our new rabbi and leadership team and coming out of a 2+ year pandemic. We are fortunate that we have reserves and our building is paid for. However, we are challenged to meet our financial obligations. I'm telling you this because it is this entire Kehilat Kadosha, this holy community's responsibility to step up. Many of you are thinking, but Heather, I can't afford to give any additional money to the Kol Nidre appeal. I'm on a fixed income, or I got downsized, or we have a bar bat mitzvah next year. I get it. I have a slightly delusional high school senior who is looking at reasonably priced schools like NYU and Boston University. I totally get it. But I also know that not everyone in this room or watching at home donates to the Kol Nidre appeal. You may have any number of reasons for not having given in the past. If you are truly feeling an economic strain, or you just never remember to click the box, send the email, drop the letter in the box. It's this part of our community who are first-time contributors that I am asking to step up. I'm asking for at least $18 or $36. Every gift above what was given last year is being matched. Now is the time to make an impact. Now is the time to invest together in our congregation. There are envelopes on the table outside on your way out this evening. Take one home with you and give some thought as to why you are part of this community and how you can support it. When we started the Capital campaign to build this space, I had just started my current job teaching for the music class. I'd been downsized out of the television industry again and was thrilled to find a way to earn some extra money and still be available to do all the mom things. When deciding how to divide up our pledge, I did a little math and realized that teaching 2 classes covered our monthly contribution when spread out over 3 years. Less than 2 hours of my time per month met our obligation. That didn't feel like a lot. It felt manageable. I use this budget trick a lot. If only I could use it to fully pay for college. You do not need to pay your entire Kol Nidre pledge at once. It can be paid in installments throughout the year. What small part of your income feels manageable to share with this community? There is another very important way to support Or Hadash, and it doesn't cost a thing. Tell your friends about us. Invite them to join us for a musical Kabbalat Shabbat. Tell them about the Rising Song Shabbaton we are hosting in December. Bring the people that you want to be in community with. Make this your spiritual home because it's where you find your friends. I am so happy to welcome all of the new members that we have added in the last 2 years, even during the pandemic. Let's keep that trending in the right direction by sharing with the wider community what makes this place so special. One obligation that most Jews share, even the ones who do not feel the draw to belong to a synagogue, is the idea that Israel is our homeland. Rabbi Lauren has a dream of leading this community on a trip to Israel. I have been hoarding my frequent flyer miles for years, hoping to take my kids. We have begun the process of talking to travel planners to try and make this a reality for December of 2024. You remember that budget trick I told you about? Figure out how you can put money aside for this trip of a lifetime. Start socking away the extra money when you skip Starbucks. Go an extra week between mani-pedis. Save some of your vacation budget for this trip to Israel. I'm making this public now so that you have plenty of time to figure out how to make this trip possible for your family and to continue to support Or Hadash. My favorite part of any trip is the planning and anticipation, and I can't wait to share in that with my Or Hadash family. Back to my original question, why are you here? Maybe my reasons struck a chord with you. You might be thinking, yes, I'm here for my children, or me too, I'm here for my friends. You might love the harmonies on Friday nights or the way Rabbi Lauren leads our Torah discussion on Saturday mornings. You might be here all the time, or you might be a 3-day-a-year Jew like me when I was a kid. Whatever brings you here, I hope you feel a sense of obligation to this community, and you will choose to give to the Kol Nidre appeal. Thank you for your continued support of Or Hadash, and may you all be sealed in the book of life for a healthy and happy new year.
Yisher Koach, Heather. Thank you so much. And thank you for all of your leadership and incredible, tireless work for our community. We're going to turn now to the Baruch Hu on page 207 and rise. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Ai, ai, dai, dai, ai, dai, 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 dai. Ai, 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 ai. Ai, 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 ai. Ai, dai, dai, ai, dai, 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 dai. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Please be seated. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher biram ha'yavim u'ma'avir yom u'mevi layla u'matil ben yom u'ben layla Adonai tzevot shemo el chai v'kayam Tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai. Ai, 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 ai. Ai, 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 ai. Ai, Amariv, Aravim, Ahavat Olam. You have loved your people, the house of Israel, with infinite love. Ki ham chayenu, ve'orach yameinu, uvahem negei yomam v'layla, ve'avatcha tasir mimenu le'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai. Ai, 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 ai. Tonight, in this holiest night of the year, we chant the full Shema out loud, like the angels, like the high priest. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם מאוד על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. וחיים שמות ישמעו מצוותיי. If you can truly hear and understand this calling, this truth of indivisible wholeness, and serve the great mystery and your fellow creatures with all your heart and soul, then blessing will flow. You will learn to care for the earth, the rain, the soil, the grass, the cattle, and share in its abundance. You will have all you need. Do not let your heart be lured after falsehood, after idols masquerading as the truth, after a belief that the fate of the land and its inhabitants are not inextricably linked. Create for yourself reminders of this truth. Bind these words on your body, on your homes. Teach them to the next generation. Speak of them everywhere. In this way, the length of your days and the length of the days of your children on this land will be as the days of the heavens on the earth. Adonai Elohechem emes. Pick up in a moment in the middle of page 210. ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה מרים ובני ישראל לחנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו להם מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נהדר בקודש נורא תהילות עושה ולב מלכותך ראו בניך בוקר ים לפני משה זה לי ענו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני איי 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 Spread over us your sukkah of peace. Ufros aleinu sukkot shlomecha baruch ata Adonai haborei sukkot shalom Please rise in body or spirit and turn to page 212. כי ביום הזה יכפר עליכם, לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם, לפני אדוני תטהרו. יתקדש ויקדש מרבה, בעלמא תברח חירותי, וימליך מלכותי בחייכם וביומכם, ובחיי כל בית ישראל. בהגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יש מרבה מבורך, לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם, יתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי קודשה בריחו. לילה לילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמא, ואמרו amen. We're about to begin our first silent Amidah of Yom Kippur, beginning on page 213, which includes the first confessions. I was studying Maimonides on the laws and rituals of confession and teshuvah with a small group a few weeks ago. And he says that it's particularly important to confess our sins out loud. And so with this group, I was searching for an example of a sin, something I thought, maybe I can find something sort of minor to share. And the first thing that came to me, which is true, that I confessed in this moment, is that I've had a hard time putting down my phone while I'm driving, and occasionally have sent texts, and I'm not proud of this, and I know I'm not alone in this, but I've kept it to myself. And when I confessed this, I saw the look on their faces, which was a bit of shock and dismay. And in that moment, while I felt this rush of guilt and some shame and certainly regret, it changed something in me. Something that had been totally private, something I thought I could get away with, suddenly was out there in the public. I could never take it back, could never unsay it. And in that moment, I said, and I'm done. I'm done. And for the last month, the temptation hasn't been there. The need, the urge hasn't been there because of that confession. I often wish that we could use this silent time for conversation, and we could actually confess out loud something that's been eating at us, something that we know is not working, but we could just make that aloud. But at least maybe for some of this silent time, we can begin to think, what is that thing that I just need to get out there in the open? And maybe at some point over the rest of this Chag, we can find someone we trust, who loves us, who will give us compassion, but also hold us accountable to tell it to. The silent Amidah begins on page 213 and goes through page 221. When you're finished with your Amidah, you can take a seat. If you're still davening, take all the time you need. We'll continue on page 223 with the Piyut Ya'aleh, describing the arc of this day, from evening to dawn to dusk again. Please rise. Ay, 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 Yahweh, Tachanunenu, Me'erev, V'yavo Shavatenu, Miboker, V'yerah Rinunenu, Ad Aref. Oh, ay, 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 Yahweh, Kolenu, Me'erev, V'yavo Tzidkatenu, Miboker, oh, V'yerah Pidonenu, Ad Aref, oh, ay, 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 Yahweh, Inuyenu, Me'erev, V'yavo Slichatenu, Miboker, oh, V'yireh Nakatenu, Ad Aref, oh, ay, ay, ay,
supplications rise up at evening. Our pleas arrive with the dawn. Our songs transform the dusk. May our voices rise up at evening. Our righteous acts arrive with the dawn. Our redemption transform the dusk. May our suffering rise up at evening. Our forgiveness arrive with the dawn. Our purity transform the dusk. May our prayers rise up at evening, coming to you with dawn, transforming us at dusk.
Please be seated. Page 224.
In that strange night, someone asked, "Can you change the past?" And the woman who was ill angrily responded, "The past is not a piece of jewelry sealed in a crystal box, nor is it a snake preserved in a bottle of formaldehyde. The past trembles within the present, and when the present falls into a pit, the past goes with it. When the past looks toward heaven, all of life is upraised, even the distant past." But the lonely man muttered, "Did not Abraham once stride the earth, he who did not seem attached to even the cord of the one who gave him birth?"
We turn to page 226 and rise for the recitation of the 13 attributes of forgiveness, the first of many times throughout this day. El rachapayim ata uval rachamim nikrata. Tavor al pesha v'timchei hasham kiyom v'yityatzeh v'mosham tazin shavatenu v'takshimenu mamar kiyom v'ikra v'shem Adonai vayavor Adonai al panav vayikra Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Chanun, Erech Hapayim, V'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Notzer Chesed l'Alafim, Notzer Avon v'Fesha v'Chata v'Naker. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Chanun, Erech Hapayim, V'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Notzer Chesed l'Alafim, Notzer Avon v'Fesha v'Chata v'Naker. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Chanun, Erech Hapayim, V'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Notzer Chesed l'Alafim, Notzer Avon v'Fesha v'Chata v'Naker. V'salachta l'avonenu l'chatatenu nechaltanu. Slach lanu Avinu וקרתנו, מחלנו, מלכנו, כי פשענו, כי אתה אדוני טוב וסלח, ורב חסד לכורך. You can be seated. We invited a few members of our community to write reflections on our high holiday theme this year, like clay, and our malleability and our creativity. And you can see all of these reflections sort of interspersed throughout the building, throughout the holidays. So I really encourage you to read all of them. But I want to share one that was written by Abby Friedman. I didn't warn her about this. Sorry, Abby. We have many potters and artists in the community, and before we sing Ki Hine Kachomer, from which this theme was taken, the piyut as clay in the hands of the potter, I'll share her words. The first time I touched clay, I was 8 years old. Our teacher gave each child a small lump. It felt right in my hands at that moment, and still feels right over 50 years later. I've heard the same from many others, whether they're professional or amateur potters, or someone who took a single pottery class decades earlier and reminisces on the joy it gave them. I've wondered why a wet clump of dirt has such a powerful pull on so many people, and why there's an instinctive urge to touch and shape it. I've come to believe that clay connects us to the earth. Touching it and holding it grounds us. I've witnessed the power of clay and art in the hands of children and adults. I've watched as their focus becomes concentrated and the day-to-day distractions slip away. My most poignant experience with the power of clay happened as a therapist working with an adult man who struggled with chronic hallucinations. He was a giant of a man whose stature alone was intimidating. He had been beaten down by the traumas of poverty, racism, and mental health stigma. During a visit, he began to weep, mourning his many losses and mistakes. The adult son he'd abandoned as a baby, toxic relationships, his declining health. He sat on the sofa and wept inconsolably. I gave him the space to safely express his grief, but began to realize that he was lost in his sadness, as he was often lost in his hallucinations. Words of comfort had no effect, and I wondered how to reach him when I saw my bag of clay. I pulled out 2 lumps and made the shape I'd learned in 3rd grade, a dog, and handed him the second piece. Initially resistant, he began to shape it. As he focused on the process, the crying quieted, and he became calm. I just watched. Finally, he looked up and said with wonder and pride, "I've never made anything before." For this man, forming clay was a guide to momentarily reach a place of peace and empowerment. As we prepare for 5783, I wish everyone the time and space to create meaning and tranquility in ways that work for you. We'll turn to page 227. And sing Ki Hine Kachomer, with a few of the verses in English, to a melody that may be familiar, the melody of Al Kol Eile by Naomi Shemer. Yadai, 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 Birzoto mar'idu birzoto mekatzer Kedanavnu be'acha chesed notzer Lamrit ha'be'it ve'al tefel la'yetzer
As iron in the hand of the blacksmith, who forges or withdraws it at will, so are we in your hand, support of the poor.
As the helm in the hand of the sailor who holds the course or abandons it at will, so are we in your hand, good and forgiving God.
As glass in the hand of the glazier who shapes or melts it at will, so are we in your hand, pardoner of sin and transgression.
Second to last verse. Ki We turn now to Shema Kolenu, page 233. We invite ark openers forward. We rise as the ark is open. Shema Kolenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chus v'rachem aleinu, v'kabel b'rachamim v'ratzon et tefilatenu.
Shema Kolenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chus v'rachem aleinu, וקבל ברחמים וברצון את תפילתנו.
השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה, חדש ימינו כקדם.
השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה, חדש ימינו כקדם.
אל תשליכנו מלפניך, ורוח קודשך אל תיקח ממנו.
אל תשליכנו מלפניך, ורוח קודשך אל תיקח ממנו.
אל תשליכנו לעת זקנה, ככלות כוחנו אל תעזבנו.
אל תשליכנו לעת זקנה, ככלות כוחנו אל תעזבנו.
אל תעזבנו אדוני אלוהינו, אל תרחק ממנו. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you, Adonai, our rock and our redeemer. It is for you we wait. Surely you will respond, Adonai, our God. The ark is closed. We turn to 234. Eloheinu v'le'avotenu v'imotenu, slach lanu, mechalanu, kaper lanu, ki anu amecha ve'ata Eloheinu, anu amecha ve'ata aminu, anu avadecha ve'ata adonenu, anu ke'alecha ve'ata cheleinu, anu nachlatecha ve'ata goraleinu, anu tzomnecha ve'ata ro'einu, anu charmecha ve'ata nodreinu, anu fa'uletecha ve'ata yodreinu, anu rayetecha ve'ata dodeinu, anu sekuletecha ve'ata kiroveinu, anu amecha ve'ata alkeinu, anu ma'amirecha ve'ata ma'amireinu, anu azefanim ve'ata rachum ve'chanun, anu ksheoref ve'ata erech apayim, anu melei avon ve'ata malei rachamim, anu yemenu ketzel over ve'ata hu shnotecha lo yitamu. Eloheinu v'le'avotenu v'imotenu, tavo lefanecha tfilatenu, ve'al titaleh mitachnutenu, she'ein anachnu zefanim kshe'oref lomar lefanecha, Adonai Eloheinu v'le'avotenu v'imotenu, tzadikim anachnu v'lo chatanu, aval anachnu ve'avotenu v'imotenu chatanu. Please be seated. I want to invite Corey Handelsman forward to introduce Ashamnu, page 235.
Never had I been involved in an incident where another person was physically hurt. Not a fight in high school, not a car accident, not any accident. until a couple of years ago, right before Yom Kippur. Another man was injured, I was injured. It was nobody's fault. He was hurt worse than I was, but it could have easily been the other way around, and I felt terrible. Lawyers got involved. Communication between this man and I could not occur. Eventually, nothing came of it because there was no one to blame. The emotional wound of this day lingers and is just starting to heal. Therefore, I don't want to pick at the scab tonight and go into the details, but I do think there is a lesson here. Yom Kippur quickly came, and I thought here was a chance to pray on this, maybe feel better. It did not help. Another year passed, another Yom Kippur came and went, but I still felt horrible. This is my third Yom Kippur since the incident. Time has dampened my emotional pain, but again, it still lingers. In the old Mazor we used to use here, I read an interesting commentary written below the Kol Nidre prayer saying, for transgressions between a human being and God, repentance on Yom Kippur brings atonement. For transgressions between one human being and another, Yom Kippur brings no atonement until the injured party is reconciled. I tell this story as to remind us not to forget about our relationship with our fellow man. I appreciate and enjoy the fresh start each holiday season brings us. However, I pray for a day where this man and I could let our guards down and talk it out. My father, Stuart Handelsman, passed away in March of this year. Of his many admirable qualities, he would forgive you before you could finish apologizing. On this Yom Kippur holiday, as we prepare to chant Asham Nu, we trust God will forgive us. We will try and forgive ourselves as we confess our sins collectively. But will we have the strength to forgive and seek forgiveness from our fellow man? Thank you.
We turn to Asham Nu, page 235. We rise. We'll do this as a call and response. Ay, 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 Asham Nu, Asham Nu, Bagad Nu, Bagad Nu, Gazal Nu, Gazal Nu, Dipar Nu Dofi, Dipar Nu Dofi, Havi Nu, Havi Nu, Vehir Shanu, Vehir Shanu, Zad Nu, Zad Nu, Hamas Nu, Hamas Nu, Tafal Nu Sheker, Tafal Nu Sheker, Ay, 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 yo, ay, 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 yo, Yats Nura, Yats Nura, Kisav Nu, Kisav Nu, Ats Nu, Ats Nu, Marad Nu, Marad Nu, Niats Nu, Niats Nu, Sarar Nu, Sarar Nu, Avinu, Avinu, Ashanu, Ashanu, Sarar Nu, Sarar Nu, Ishinu Oreh, Ishinu Oreh, Ay, 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 yo. Rashanu, Rashanu, Shichatnu, Shichatnu, Tiavnu, Tiavnu, Tahinu, Tahinu, Titanu, Titanu, Ay, 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 ay. We have turned from your goodly laws and commandments, but has not profited us. Surely you are in the right with respect to all that comes upon us, for you have acted faithfully, but we have been in the wrong. Turn to the longer confession, Al Chait, page 237. We'll recite each section half in Hebrew, half in English, beginning with the Hebrew. You can join in on whichever language or both languages that you feel most comfortable in. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך באונס וברצון, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך באימוץ הלב, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בבלי דעת, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בביטוי שפתיים, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בגילוי עריות, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בגלוי ובסתר, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בדעת ובמרמה, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בדיבור פה, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בהונאת ריאה, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בהרהור הלב.
We have sinned against you through forbidden trysts, and we have sinned against you through empty confession. We have sinned against you by scorning parents and teachers, and we have sinned against you purposely and by mistake. We have sinned against you by resorting to violence, and we have sinned against you by public desecration of your name. We have sinned against you through foul speech, and we have sinned against you through foolish talk. We have sinned against you through pursuing the impulse to evil, and we have sinned against you wittingly and unwittingly. For all these sins, forgiving God, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement.
שחטאנו לפניך בכחש ובכזב, והחטא שחטאנו לפניך בכפת שוחד, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך ברצון, והחטא שחטאנו לפניך בלשון הרע, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך במשא ובמתן, והחטא שחטאנו לפניך במאכל ובמשתה.
We have sinned against you by greed and oppressive interest, and we have sinned against you through arrogance. We have sinned against you in everyday conversation, and we have sinned against you through conspiratorial glances. We have sinned against you through condescension, and we have sinned against you through stubbornness. For all these sins, forgiving God, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement.
שחטאנו לפניך בפריקה הדול, והחטא שחטאנו לפניך בפלילות, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בצדיעת רעה, והחטא שחטאנו לפניך בצרות עין, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בקלות ראש, והחטא שחטאנו לפניך בקשיות עורף.
We have sinned against you by rushing to do evil, and we have sinned against you through gossip. We have sinned against you through empty promises, and we have sinned against you through baseless hatred. We have sinned against you by betraying trust, and we have sinned against you by succumbing to confusion. For all these sins, forgiving God, forgive us, pardon us, and grant us atonement.
Ve'al kulam Eloah selichot Slav lanu mechal lanu kaper lanu Ve'al kulam Eloah selichot Slav lanu mechal lanu Slav lanu mechal lanu kaper lanu. We turn to Avinu Malkeinu, page 243. We invite our teen madrichim forward to open the ark.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Ein lanu melech elata. Avinu Malkeinu, Aseh imanu. Leman shemecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Ein lanu melech elata. Avinu Malkeinu, Aseh imanu, leman shemecha.
We chant together in the bold in the Hebrew. Avinu Malkeinu, Achzireinu b'tshuva shlema lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Shlach refuah shlema lechol ha'amecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Zochreinu b'zikaron tov lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Kotbenu b'sefer chayim tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, Kotbenu b'sefer geula v'yeshua. Avinu Malkeinu, Kotbenu b'sefer zechor v'chakala. Avinu Malkeinu, Kotbenu b'sefer zechuyot. Avinu Malkeinu, Kotbenu b'sefer slicha u'mechila. tzedaka v'chesed, aseh imanu tzedaka v'chesed, v'hoshienu, Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu Baneinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu Baneinu, Ki ein banu ma'asim, aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed, aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed, v'hoshienu, Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu Baneinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu Baneinu, Ki ein banu ma'asim. Please be seated. So this sermon needs a little disclaimer, which is that I have to confess, in the spirit of confessions tonight, that I would much rather do this as a conversation. This is why I love our practice on Shabbat mornings, mostly where I don't give sermons and we just talk things out, because it's really hard to put forth ideas and then not really know how they landed. So actually this year, we're going to be doing that tomorrow. So to give some of the sermon a little time to settle, because tonight I'm going to be talking about Israel, which is a conversation that I would much prefer to do like this rather than like this. So at 4:30, Ken Stein has graciously agreed to hold some space with me where he and I are going to be in conversation together to unpack some of the ideas that I'm going to be talking about tonight. And then we invite all of you to come and bring your questions and your thoughts and your reflections so that we can be in conversation together. So this summer, I was really blessed to be able to spend 2 weeks in Israel. And most of my time was spent studying with other rabbis at the Shalom Hartman Institute in Jerusalem, mainly rabbis from North America. And so on the first morning of the seminar, I sat down in the Beit Midrash. I had my journal ready. I'm like a vigorous note taker, so I was like ready to go. And Rabbi Daniel Hartman, the president of the Institute, steps forward to the podium and starts to frame what the focus of our learning is going to be for the next 10 days. And he says that the question at the heart of our learning is going to be the question, why Israel? That is to say, why should I, living in the diaspora, have a relationship with Israel? So it seems to me like after 70 plus years of statehood, the why of Israel should be a given. Why Israel? Because it exists. Because it's the Jewish homeland. Because this is what we've been dreaming about for 2,000 years. But as Israel approaches her 75th birthday later on this year, This is a question that's on many of our minds. It's a question that's been on my mind. And as if he had read my thoughts, Daniel's next sentence to this room full of rabbis was, you know, those congregants of yours, you North American rabbis, who are asking why Israel of their rabbi, it's because they haven't heard their rabbi speaking about Israel that much. And so they're assuming that this means that their rabbi can't answer the question. And I felt a little personally implicated. Did I have an answer to this question? Did I need to have an answer to this question? Growing up in the 1990s and the 2000s, I took Israel's existence for granted. The project of that era was peace, the era of the Oslo Accords. But the existence of Israel as a nation, like all other nations, was not up for debate. So this question, this why Israel question, almost felt delegitimizing. I worried if we start asking this question in public, doesn't it open a door for Israel's critics, or the ones that say Israel doesn't have a right to exist, to hang their criticism on the Jewish community's internal questioning? It seems like maybe, perhaps by asking this question, why Israel, we're conceding the possibility that there could be an alternative. That if we, as a Jewish community, don't articulate a compelling enough answer to this question, then Israel's existence as a state will crumble. But I think this why project is for us internally, as a conversation among the Jewish people. So to frame it this way, of all of the things screaming for our attention all the time, all the concerns and worries and missions we could devote our time and efforts to on a daily basis, why should we devote our time and resources and energy to building a relationship with Israel? Or perhaps for Israelis, a better way to frame this question could be, what is Israel's core mission and purpose? How do we wake up and feel that there is something here with Israel that I should actually care about, especially for those of us who don't ever plan on making Aliyah? For decades, Rabbi Hartman shared, there were two answers to this question for the majority of American Jews, and they were self-evident. The first answer to the question, why Israel, is that this is the place that has saved millions of Jewish lives and will continue to be the only country in the world whose mission is to protect the Jewish people. This answer still has some weight, although in a time when, for example, a significant number of Ukrainian Jewish refugees are opting to resettle, perhaps surprisingly, in Germany rather than in Israel, it is no longer enough. Many Ukrainian Jewish refugees fleeing to Germany have done so because they perceive Israel as just another conflict zone, or because they have concerns that their Jewish status will not be accepted by the Orthodox establishment. The second original answer to why Israel, which was particularly true after the Six-Day War in 1967, was that for most American non-Orthodox Jews, Israel was the most exciting thing going on in Jewish life. Every other aspect of Jewish ritual, Shabbat, prayer, kashrut, paled in comparison to the dynamism of being caught up in building a state in real time. This was the first time in 2,000 years that we were a sovereign people in our own indigenous homeland. This was the greatest Jewish project going on in our lifetimes. So how could you not be bound up in supporting it and giving what you could to sustain it? Jews, the 50s and the 60s and the 70s felt often that we were making history every single day. And even for Orthodox Jews in those decades, Israel elevated the entire project of being Jewish. So this was a winning combination for building a strong connection between Jews and Israel. It was both responding to a feeling of an existential threat, to a real existential threat, and sparking excitement. So what changed? The safety piece is still very true and compelling for some, and particularly for those from nations with undemocratic and anti-Semitic regimes where hostility and violence toward Jews has been the norm. And for those of us who have spent our entire lives feeling safe as Jews in America, even this feeling of our own safety here in this country has shifted for many of us in the last few years as we've seen a significant rise in anti-Semitism in this country. But the biggest piece that has changed and that is sparking so many more Jews to ask the question, maybe for the first time, why Israel, is that Israel is often no longer the most exciting thing going on in Jewish life today. There is a vibrant spiritual renaissance going on in American Judaism, as well as a sense that many of us American Jews feel that our focus must be on the country where we hold citizenship and vote and live, first and foremost. And so for many, Israel can feel more like a burden they carry than a passionate spark that keeps them going. Fighting BDS and anti-Zionism and Israel's delegitimization feels like an endless battle, a weight. And so much of our Israel education has been about helping us better understand the history, the complexity of the situation. But I worry that if our success is measured these days by getting people to the place where they can ultimately say it's complicated, that hardly feels like a victory. And even for those of us for whom this relationship is uncomplicated, we may have a harder and harder time communicating with our family members, sometimes our own kids and grandkids, whose relationship with Israel does not have our own same kind of sense of ease. Perhaps this kind of conversation can only begin a certain period of time after a new state's founding, because the first few decades are so utterly consumed with state building and fighting for the pure existence of a new nation to take root. Beryl Katznelson, one of the early founders of labor Zionism, said precisely this in the year 1933 at the funeral of the Israeli poet Chaim Nachman Bialik. He wrote, "We are now standing in the land of Israel at a moment of its initial construction. We are engaged in the collection of sand and grout for the mixing of the foundation and its supportive framework. But we are not yet ready to consider the interior, the furniture for the house. All our significant efforts are focused on making sure the foundation is strong and wide and will be able to accommodate and support those who come into the building. Since the days of the return of the Jews from Babylonian exile in order to build the Second Temple, such a building project has not existed in Jewish history. We have no time to think about a deep spiritual life. The only thing that justifies our generation, that gives our lives meaning, that gives our existence value, is the construction of this building. But we know there will be days in the future when many Jews will return to this land. And what is discussed nowadays with disdain, whether because of the hard work or exhaustion, will become a great foundation for the soul for those who come after us." So now, almost 75 years into this collective Jewish construction project that is Israel, it is time to take up the question of why Israel in earnest, and to discover a range of answers. And because we are Jews, there will be no single answer, no sweeping statement that will win over and speak to all Jews forever in all of our multiple identities, in all of our generations and contexts and commitments. But I think it's the asking of the question itself that is the most important, even as potentially threatening as it might seem. It is allowing for the flourishing and flowering of multiple Zionisms, just like in the beginning of pre-state Israel, back when everything was possible, and multiple visions for Israel's character and future were being offered up. It might help us a little bit to look back at the very first Jewish collective building project for some wisdom going forward. And that was the building of the Mishkan, the traveling sanctuary that accompanied the Israelites in the desert after they left Egypt. Rabbi Chaim ibn Attar, who was an 18th century Moroccan rabbi known colloquially as the Or HaChaim, notices that toward the end of the book of Exodus, it says that all of Bnei Yisrael, all of the Israelites, participated in the design and the construction of the Mishkan. But he notes, wasn't it just Bezalel and the other skilled craftspeople that were actually doing the work? Why was all of Bnei Yisrael mentioned here? So he writes that this verse is here, including all of Bnei Yisrael, to teach us a larger truth. This story represents a joining together of the wider Jewish people with all of its disparate parts that is necessary for the fulfilling of Torah itself. Which is to say, you have the ability to fulfill certain parts of Torah that I do not. And I have the ability to fulfill certain parts that you do not. But collectively, through all of us, this project of Torah is fulfilled. I fear that today we have narrowed too far down about what it means to be a Zionist. And to be a Zionist today has become such a small and narrow and tight box that fewer and fewer of us can find our place in it. So I think it's the asking of the question, why Israel? Really, why Israel for you individually, that invites each of us to find our place in it and to articulate what the threads of that relationship truly are. So I want to share with you from a personal place what is at the heart of my own evolving response to this question, which I'm sure is going to change and grow and morph as the years go on, as Israel grows, as I grow. But upon returning to Israel this summer, I found for me that the piece that is at the heart and animates and sustains my own connection to this land, to this people, to this idea, is watching Israel become a laboratory for spiritual renewal in a way that I see as re-enlivening Jewish life, not just for a whole generation of Israelis, but really for the benefit and the flourishing of all of Judaism, and for us here in this country as well. When I first traveled to Israel on birthright at age 19, Israel was presented to me as kind of a great battlefield over competing narratives and claims for dominance. And it was really hard as a 19-year-old college student to see my own nascent spiritual life reflected there. So I returned for a year of study before starting rabbinical school, and then a second year 3 years later. And I began seeking out the pockets of Jewish spirituality that I could find in Israel that were accessible to me as an American female rabbinical student. I would go up north to meditation retreats up in the Galilee. I would visit these dialogue groups run by American immigrants. But it still felt like I was living in this very American bubble. And I wondered why it seemed like my Judaism bore very little resemblance to what seemed like an authentic Israeli Judaism. So I left my year in Israel in 2013, feeling very refreshed and energized, but still pretty unsure where Israel fit into my spiritual life. So fast forward then to this past summer. This is my first time back since 2015. And although the learning in the classroom really challenged me intellectually, it was the out-of-classroom experience that spoke directly to my soul. My first Friday there, I was walking home from brunch. I took myself to this little cafe and brought my journal, of course, and was writing. And then I walked home, kind of wandered through the streets downtown, found my way back to my Airbnb. And I just happened to glance at this bulletin board, and I saw an announcement for a concert that was happening just later that day, Friday afternoon. It was this outdoor musical Kabbalat Shabbat featuring a religious Yemenite singer, prayer leader, hip hop artist, if those things can go together, which they can, who was born in Bat Yam. And I had actually heard the same guy perform the night before to our group. His name is Shai Tzabari. You can look up his music. So on a whim, I bought a ticket. I said, I'm not doing anything. I don't have any plans. It's Friday afternoon. I'm going to come back at 2 p.m. After class lets out, after work's done. And I settled down in this courtyard that was filled with 200 plus Israelis, seemingly from all walks of life, defying all binary categories of religious and secular. They handed me this small booklet that had Kabbalat Shabbat songs and prayers that were printed alongside Israeli secular classics and poetry. And for the next hour and a half, I just found myself swept up in this musical journey that culminated in hundreds of people on their feet, dancing and swaying along with this beat of Rachamana, which we're going to end with tonight. And the following morning, Shabbat morning, I wandered over to a community called Zion, which is a spiritual community led by a rabbi, Rabbah Tamar Elad Applebaum, that describes itself as Kihilat Eretz Yisraelit, an authentically homegrown Israeli spiritual community. And they too are weaving together Sephardi and Mizrahi style piyutim and poetry, along with Ashkenazi melodies and Israeli secular poetry and songs in a way that you would think would feel very disjointed, but doesn't. It all just works. So I, of course, taking advantage of this, was like the first one to show up on Shabbat morning, the eager student, without my notebook because it's Shabbat. So I'm there in the second row, just taking it all in. And I watched as this entirely female religious leadership team guided the service. And that morning, a young girl who was the daughter and granddaughter of American and French Olim immigrants became bat mitzvah, surrounded by a gaggle of her girlfriends, all these young Israeli girls wearing talitot, so clearly at home in this community. The prayer was transcendent. The mood was joy. What was different about this synagogue than many others that I had been to before was it wasn't just an American conservative style synagogue that had been sort of imported over. It was something else entirely, both familiar and new and 100% organic, homegrown to the land. So I continue to see these same kinds of cultural and spiritual experimentations everywhere I looked, which were all products of a Judaism that is born out of kibbutz galuyot, this ingathering of Jews from all over the globe. And I think we are just now beginning to find out what happens when you bring together diaspora Jewish cultures that have been forming independently of one another for hundreds or even thousands of years, when they are finally returned and reunited in the land from which they originated. What happens? Not quite a melting pot, but something else unique and incredible. This kind of Jewish spiritual renaissance coming out of Israel right now is fuel for my soul. Not just because of its richness, but because it is not based in a mentality of a sort of supersessionism that believes, and I've been told this, and maybe you have too, that in time, in order to have a flourishing Jewish life, every Jew from the diaspora must eventually make aliyah. And the Jewish life here or somewhere else in the diaspora is forever impoverished. But it's the kind of renaissance that is really rooted in a sense of mutual interdependence, where North American and diaspora Jewish life is strengthened and intertwined with Israel's flourishing, and Israel's Jewish spiritual life is nurtured by strong diaspora communities. I think the narratives around Zionism are changing and shifting. I know that the old stories will not always speak to a new generation, or sometimes even to an older generation, ones that have become disillusioned and distant from the project of building Israel. And I've talked to you, so I know this is not just a young people thing, this is an everybody thing. The story of spiritual revival and renewal is but one component of a new story of Zionism that speaks to my heart, but it is not enough. The why Israel that I am committed to is about lifting up the entirety of the Jewish people and the flourishing of this beautiful tradition that we have inherited. It is about a shared responsibility for taking care of our ancestral homeland, along with other peoples and tribes who have called it home for ages, Jewish and Palestinian peoples whose pasts are inextricably linked to this place and whose futures are tied to this land as well. So a truly compelling set of responses to the question of why Israel will ultimately have to reckon with a quest for an ultimate solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and present a way out of eternal division. Maybe you are one of the people who knows your own answer to this question, why Israel, immediately upon being asked. And if that is so, mitzion, fantastic. Perhaps this drasha is not meant for you exactly. Although I will say that if you have found yourself exhausted by fighting endless battles against Israel's critics and feel yourself spiritually depleted, it might be worthwhile to take a step back and revisit this question for yourself. What is at the heart of my connection? What fuels me? What keeps this relationship alive? But if you are someone who has felt perplexed or confused or distant or estranged from Israel, unsure of where it fits into your Jewish life here in America, and perhaps feeling at times like your connection with Israel is more burden than blessing, I want to say first that you are not alone, and it's okay to feel this way. I also want to say, even though this could get me in trouble, that those of you who often feel that you are passionately at odds with Israel's government and the directions that it is heading in, your voices too are necessary expressions of a vital why Israel. And I'm far less concerned with the passionate and invested Jewish critics and challengers than I am with those of us, and I count myself in this camp at times, who go through these periods of doubt and distance from Israel and ask, why should this relationship be something worth sustaining? But I don't ultimately think that it is possible for us as American Jews to disengage from a relationship with Israel, both because the wider non-Jewish world sees the story of Israel and the story of the Jewish people as ultimately bound up with one another, and will keep calling upon American Jews to testify to their connection to Israel and what it means to them, but far more importantly, because our fates are bound up together. So what I think this might mean for our modern day collective Jewish building project is that it needs all of us. All of our visions for the future, both those who are living in the land and those of us who make our lives outside of it. We are part of a greater body, a greater ecosystem called Klal Yisrael. So in order for the project of Judaism to be healthy, it is impossible that Israel could be successful, but the US Jewish community, or the French Jewish community, or the Argentinian Jewish community could languish. And conversely, it is impossible that American Judaism could flourish, but Israel could not be okay. It will take all of us asking these questions and striving for our own answers, and ultimately recommitting to the conversation with one another to build a thriving Jewish future for all of us. So may this be our work going forward this year and in the years to come. Gamar Chatima Tova. So I want to bring us into a little bit of that space to begin to close our service, that space that I sat in that Friday in the courtyard at Beit Avichai in Yerushalayim, with a song that is found on page 242 of your Machzor at the bottom. We'll start it slow, and then the energy will grow. We'll sing the first line and the third line. Rachamana da'ane le'aniye Oive anena. God of mercy who answers the poor, answer us. Rachamana de'ane li tvire liba anena. God of mercy who answers the brokenhearted, answer us.
Rachamana de'ane lani oive anena. Rachamana de'ane lani oive anena. Rachamana de'ane litvire liba oyanena Rachamana de'ane litvire liba oyanena Rachamana de'ane lani oive anena. Rachamana de'ane lani oive anena. Rachamana de'ane litvire liba oyanena Rachamana de'ane litvire liba oyanena Rachamana de'ane lani oive anena. Rachamana de'ane lani oive anena. Rachamana de'ane litvire liba oyanena Rachamana de'ane litvire liba oyanena
I won't keep you here until midnight to sing that, but we could. I'm just saying we could. We could. We'll turn to page 245 for Kaddish Shalem. Yitkadal v'yitkadashem he'rabah Be'alma divrach hirutei ve'amlich malchutei B'chayechon u'v'yom echon u'v'chayetecho beit Yisrael Bagala u'bizman kariv ve'yimeru amen Yishmeru b'milvorach le'olam u'olmei almaya Yitbarach Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbahar v'yitrom v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shem merikudesh abrichu le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata tishbechata v'nachamata damiran b'yama v'yimeru amen Tikabel Lord honu v'hondecho Yisrael kodam avuhon Divishmaya ve'imeru amen Yesh lamara b'mishamaya ve'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen Oseh shalom b'mroma Yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imeru amen rise for Aleinu, page 246. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latei gedula liotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chalkeinu kahem, vigor aleinu kechol hamonam. ואנחנו פורים ומשחרים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר הארץ. לתקן עולם במלכות שדי. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו We turn to Mourner's Kaddish, page 247, and invite all who are saying Kaddish to join together. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon u'chaye d'chol beit Yisrael, v'gala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'elam ulamei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei d'kudsha barihu. Le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'yimaru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya. L'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimaru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yimaru amen. Yehi zichronam livracha, may all their memories be a blessing. So tomorrow morning, we will start up at 9 a.m. Yizkor will happen during the Torah service around 11:30 a.m. or so, give or take. At 2 o'clock, I believe, 2:30, Robin Lewis is going to be leading a walk, a stroll for those who need to get the blood flowing a little bit in the afternoon. And then Ken and I will be in conversation and talkbacks at 4:30. And the book of Jonah and Mincha begin at 6 p.m. With Ne'ilah at 7 p.m. So we hope that you will join us. Someone asked me just before the service, do you wish people an easy fast or a meaningful fast? And I said, actually, neither. Because I don't assume everyone's fasting, and we actually have a room dedicated this year for folks who need to eat, for whom it's a mitzvah to eat on Yom Kippur. So I wish you all a meaningful day, a day of reflection and introspection. If you are fasting from food, I hope it is good for your body and good for your soul. If you're not, encourage you maybe to take a fast, ta'anit dibur, perhaps, ability to be mindful of your speech. The service doesn't end when you go home. This Yom Kippur holiday lasts and invites us to approach everything we do with a deeper degree of mindfulness, as if we're in a kind of retreat over these next 23 hours. So we'll see you tomorrow, and Gemar Chatima Tova. May you all be sealed for good. Page 250? Okay. If you want to sing Yigdal with us, we'll close you out with Yigdal. Yigdal
Elohim Chai Ve'yishtabach Nimsa Yeineh Lemetziuto Echad Ve'en Yachid Keyichudo Na'alav Ve'al Tov Ve'achudo Ein lo demutago Ve'eino Uvlona Erochela Kedushato Admon lechol davar Asher nivra Rishon ve'en reshit Lereshito Hino Adon olam Ve'chol natzai Yoreh Gedulato Malchuto Shefa Nebuato Nitano El Anshei Segulato V'tifarto Lo Ham Yisrael K'Moshe Navi Umavi Et emunato Torah Emet Natan Ve'amoel Al Yad Nevi'o Le'man Beito Lo Ya'alipalel Lo Yamir Dato Le'hu Olamim Zezulato Tofe Ve'olea Sitareinu Ma'abim Lesof Davar Ve'kod Mato Romer Ve'ish Chesed Ken Yifalo Notein Hashara Kelishato Yishlach Leketyami Meshichenu Vivdod Mechayeket Yeshuato Eitim El Erod Pasto Baruch Adonai Shem Tehilato Eitim Yechael Erod Pasto Baruch Adonai Shem Tehilato.
Yes, your co-op.
Hi, Dan. Dan.
Hey, Stacy.
Hey, Stacy.
Hey, Karen. How are you guys doing?
Good. Hold on one second. I'm on the other side of the.
They're gonna end this in a second.
Are you
Yeah.
guys up? I know. Are you guys in Colorado?
Yeah.
We are.
We miss you.
We miss you guys too.
When are you coming back?
Is that my Tulane brother I see standing behind you?
Yes.
Hey, buddy.
Hey.
Mazel tov on getting inducted into the Tulane Hall of Fame.
Well, we're leaving Thursday. I'm so excited to see my coach. She's turning 86 and she hired a driver to bring her down from Arkansas. Oh, I can't wait to see Coach Parchment.
So what was your athletic?
Tennis. I played all 4 years.
Nice.
So 72. Oh, sorry. Where everybody else is on, they don't want to hear this, right? Sorry. But 72, 73, we were Newcomb's women's team. And then we became the next year, Tulane made us varsity level and we were Tulane's women's team.
Very cool. Mazel tov.
Thank you so much. I'm excited. How are you guys doing?
Doing okay. And there's Jerry.
I see Jerry.
Hello, Jerry.
Where's Lois? Unmute yourself, Jerry. Oh,
You're
it's so
muted,
good to
Jerry.
see people. I see David Woodsfell's picture.
So when are you coming back to Atlanta? Ever?
Early December. Our lease here, as of right now, ends. Oh,
Oh, we're being recorded, Foster.
oh, our lease here in Lakewood ends the end of January. So we've got to decide what we're going to do. We're not, but we've been going back and forth every 2 to 3 months
Yeah.
with Rocky, of course, and doing it in a 3-day drive.
Yeah.
So is that Lois? I think
Yes,
I
sir.
see, no, but isn't that Lois? Hey, Lois. Unmute yourself.
Gary, you're muted.
Yeah, they're muted. Oh, I miss them so much. I miss you guys too.
Oh, we can't wait to see you in the flesh again.
Yay. There, now I can hear you. How are you guys? It's so good to see you, Jerry and Lois.
Well, thank you. Wasn't it a beautiful, beautiful service?
Wasn't it?
Oh.
I just changed